All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to have you all with us today. My name is Jill Rankin. I'm the Executive Director for the Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Aging, and we are happy to be welcoming you to today's Age Well series in partnership with our Falls Free Wisconsin initiative. And the title of today's presentation is Inside Hoarding: What It Is, What It Isn't, and How to Help. So just a little bit about our organization and why we're here today is our mission is to improve the health and well-being of all of us as we age here in Wisconsin and beyond. And we do this by, we provide training and support to many organizations through the state of Wisconsin as well as nationwide when it comes to evidence-based health promotion programs. We also are a statewide hub for all things healthy aging. We provide resources on fall prevention and social connection and all things healthy aging. So if you haven't already checked out our website, we welcome you to do that. There's lots of great information on there. There's little self-assessments and some fun wellness type activities on there. And we also have the Age Well newsletter, which is an e-newsletter that comes out on a regular basis. So if you're not already signed up for that, we encourage you to do that and get lots of really great health education information and information on all of our Age Well series webinars. So that's a little bit about us. And I think what I would like to do now is welcome our presenter. So I will welcome Carla Alejo, who is with us from Catholic Charities. And she is going to talk with us about the truth behind the hoarding disorder. So we're really excited to have Carla with us. She's going to give us a lot of really great information. And then we will have time for questions and answers at the end. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat if you'd like to throughout the presentation. Or afterwards, when we're ready for Q&A, we will also welcome you to unmute and ask questions that way as well. So welcome, Carla. I am going to hand it over to you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I am Carla Alejo, the Director of the Hoarding Intervention Treatment Program here in Milwaukee, and with Catholic Charities. I am excited to be talking to all of you. I hear there is a lot of you on today, so I am going to go over a presentation with some slides. And from what I hear, all of this information is going to be shared to you guys. So, because we have a limited amount of time and this is very overwhelming information, maybe new to some of you. And I know you guys are interested in it. So make sure you look for the slides and handouts afterwards. But I'm going to get started. We will dive right into hoarding disorder. I know a lot of people have hoarding disorder and don't understand what it is. And those families and friends also have a hard time understanding. So we've broken it down to hoarding disorder is a mental health condition brought on by different causes. It is a coping mechanism to deal with difficult emotions. Most common way that you will see people having hoarding disorder is because of traumas that have been happened to them in their life and they have not processed those traumas. So they have unresolved emotions from those situations. Another group of people that we have seen a lot of hoarding disorder in is those who may be suffering or may be on the autism spectrum. As we are learning more and more about the autism spectrum, we understand that those on the spectrum have difficulties identifying and processing emotions. So there is a high number of people that have hoarding disorder that may be on the spectrum. And with every year, we are coming across people that have the disorder because they have grown up in that environment. That is all they know. And so it is ingrained in them, different beliefs behind their disorder. But I will kind of get into how to recognize it and at the end, I will let you guys know a little bit about our program here that we have. But what I want you to take away is the basics about hoarding disorder. Next. So, when I say hoarding disorder is a coping mechanism, I have to bring it back because a lot of us hear those words, coping mechanism, but what is coping, right? Healthy coping and unhealthy coping. So when life events happen and long-term outlooks and decision making is delayed and only immediate tasks are tended to, it's called survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, if there is something that comes across your plate that takes those pressures, those societal pressures off of you, that ends up being called coping, right? It's your way to disconnect from your problems and relax for a minute. But unfortunately, sometimes things that may be a healthy coping mechanism will turn unhealthy if there's not enough balance. And if it is now taking away and stops you from enjoying life and things become more difficult in life and you're still using that same coping mechanism, then it's time to take a look and reevaluate what's going on. So next. Okay. So there are indicators for hoarding disorder. And something that you will not see on this list of that indicates hoarding disorder is that there's a lot of garbage. Number one indicator is there's an excessive amount of items which appear useless to most people, but this does not mean that these items are garbage or unuseful. It just means there's an excessive amount of items. The second indicator is that those items prevent rooms, the activities from what those rooms were designed, which means if you have a dining room and it is filled with clutter and you are no longer eating in that dining room, that meets the indicator. If you have items in the kitchen and it prevents you from cooking, you meet that indicator. It could be that the couch is full of stuff, you meet that indicator. Doesn't mean the whole room has to be filled up. It doesn't mean that you have to have 2 feet of stuff. You can have one layer of stuff in your home, but if that you are unable to do the activity which that room was designed, that means you meet the indicator. The third one is that individuals feel significant despair or stress caused by the disorder. And what I will hear is some people will say, well, my stuff doesn't stress me out. My landlord is stressing me out, or my family member is stressing me out. But if it weren't for the clutter, those people would not be stressing you out. So either directly or indirectly, that there is stress due to those items. 4, the person is overwhelmed or embarrassed by the clutter. Everyone that I serve that has hoarding disorder is shameful of it. And we get that. And that's why a lot of people tend to isolate when they start suffering from hoarding disorder. But it's kind of an important thing, as I will mention in a second. And the fifth one is the individual, family, or community is also affected by the clutter. When we go and assess people for hoarding disorder, we say if you meet 3 of these indicators, it shows us that you are suffering from hoarding disorder. It doesn't mean that it's filled with garbage or other things. Hoarding disorder just encompasses these indicators. Next. So in these pictures, you have a hallway on the right, and then you have a desk on the left. I don't know what if you guys are thinking, but this is hoarding disorder. Why? It's because the desk, or it's actually not a desk, it is a table, it is a dining room table, and it is filled with clutter. It could be important papers and stuff, but it is preventing the activity what that room was designed. This was designed to eat at, but because of the clutter, it no longer able to do that activity. And it is obvious that this person is becoming very overwhelmed by the stuff. They're adding more baskets, but they're not clearing out and organizing what they have. On the picture on the right, it's a hallway, but the activities for hallways is to be able to get through, not just walking, but stretchers need to be able to get through these hallways. And due to this clutter, a stretcher would not be able to get through this hallway. So this is also an indicator of hoarding disorder. Again, it's obvious, it's not garbage, but people are becoming overwhelmed by the items. This one also is a quick, you may look at this and not think hoarding disorder, but this is because this room is no longer being utilized as a living room. It is being utilized as a storage room and a storage space, and people can't come over to visit. Um, what rooms are designed for? You can't sit down and watch TV. So, next, misconceptions and stigma about hoarding disorder. Very important. Everyone that suffers from hoarding disorder does not want to live like that. The thing is, they don't know how to live without it. So, big misconceptions is that those with hoarding disorder are dirty or lazy or unintelligent. I will tell you, many of the clients that we serve were professionals at one time, very smart. We serve a lot of people who were teachers, professors, directors, um, therapists themselves. This hoarding disorder can happen to anyone, and it happens to more people than you would expect. Um, and in almost every home that we go into, we find a book on how to get organized. And people seem not to be able to get out of this themselves. So the causes behind this disorder is a mix, and it's usually a mix of different things, including mental health and physical health, your financial health, and your social health. All of that comes together and it creates a perfect storm of you trying to just survive. And when you're trying to survive, again, you're unable to make long-term decisions. And back to hoarding, as I mentioned, there is a significant amount of people who have the disorder. Remember, hoarding disorder is not when your house is packed. I'm sure many of you have seen the show on TV, and I've worked with the show before, but the show is very unrealistic to those who have hoarding disorder because they show a lot of garbage. TV is meant for drama. So when you're thinking about this disorder, do not, or a family member, I would not compare them to the show because the way they fix the situation in the show is a quick clear up, and that's not the right not the right approach. But I'll kind of go into more better approaches if you have somebody that has hoarding disorder. But at least 50% of the people who have the disorder are at immediate risk for eviction or losing their home or housing, or they have a house and they've pushed themselves out of their houses. So, hoarding disorder is much more about this, much more than the stuff. This hoarding disorder and stuff, um, it comes together with this puzzle. And the puzzle pieces are the emotions, your physical health, your social health, your financial health, and then your environment. All those pieces make up this disorder. So if someone is looking to have to address the disorder, you have to address all of these wellness factors. And that can come from different ways. Of course, emotional, what's most important if someone has hoarding disorder is that they're talking to a mental health provider. Gotta have some type of therapist and some support so you can start processing those emotions. You have to address your physical well-being also, because that is used at many times as a reason why stuff has kind of collected and cluttered up. It's because maybe I have bad shoulders or bad knees. And somebody will say, this stuff is just piled up because I've been sick. I can't go through the things that I want to go through. But if you don't take care of your physical health, then you will never get to declutter and get to those other tasks. Your social, spiritual well-being is very important in treating hoarding disorder because that's going to give you a sense of connection to other people and help with that processing emotions and possibly traumas in life. But having support um, and being able to get out of the house and socialize is very important. Your financial well-being is also important. I don't know anyone that we are helping that does not have financial issues due to their hoarding disorder. And that comes from not keeping up with bills because you get overwhelmed. We all get overwhelmed by mail that comes through. Um, if you are having health issues, you start getting more medical bills, and then you're not able to work. And that all contributes to this disorder. So, to be able to have treatment for the disorder, you have to look at all these factors. Making sure you get yourself on a budget, having someone help you get reorganized. And then the last, but what most people contribute hoarding disorder is your environment, right? It is all the stuff that is around you. But unfortunately, those who have hoarding disorder are at high risk for falls. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen clients fall in front of me, and I've heard many stories of people falling and stuff falling on them and trapping them. I've heard stories of people falling and being stuck for days in situations. And of course, the more clutter you have, the worse things are going to be. It's hard to find an individual if there's a lot of clutter. If you have a lot of clutter in your home and family isn't coming to visit, then they're not going to discover if you've had a fall. Um, and I know there's different reasons why people keep things a certain way, but safety is always number one in the home and needs to be addressed. Next. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but hoarding disorder doesn't just affect an individual. It affects your whole community. Hoarding disorder is very costly to your community, um, from housing and evictions to social workers to inspectors. The cost to your community from hoarding disorder is pretty extreme. I've crunched some numbers here just for Milwaukee County, and
Aging and Disability Resource Center, how can I help you?
and the uh, the cost is in the millions just in Milwaukee County because hoarding disorder isn't being treated the way it needs to. It's not about the stuff. Again, if your stuff is cleared out of your home, it's not going to solve the problem. Um, and unfortunately, there is not a lot of help out there for those who have hoarding disorder. We have, from what I know, still the only hoarding intervention and treatment program in the country. You can find maybe a therapist that says that they work with those who have hoarding disorder, or an organizer, but a wraparound treatment is the best approach to be able to address all of the wellness factors that we just talked about. Next. So, some practical advice that I have for you guys is educating yourself and others on hoarding disorder. Again, most people who are suffering from it don't understand it themselves. Family and friends don't understand, and your health providers, your mental health providers may not have a clue unless you let them know. Support groups are very helpful when it comes to this disorder, whether it be a hoarding support group or a support groups that deal with loss of loved ones or addictions. So I always suggest join a support group if you find one that fits for you. But practical advice is make a simple written plan and realistic goals. It's not about cleaning it all up in one day because it didn't happen in one day. It has happened slowly through time, and then you have developed a routine that includes these bad coping mechanisms. So to undo it, it's about the same process as it was of collecting. So what that will look like is, for our program, we work with individuals 2 hours once a week. Start working on small areas and small goals, and just keeping up a routine. And I know routines are hard, but there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Making sure you have a plan for barriers. If you're going to start addressing your clutter, realistically, we know during this process, something's going to happen. This is life and things happen. We lose loved ones, we go to the hospital, we get into a car accident. We have to plan for certain things like that. We have to understand that when those hard times come, we can deal with it, but we still have to keep our routine to keep our homes decluttered. And self-care is important because this is overwhelming, right? You do need to be able to schedule yourself in for self-care or reward yourself. You know, you've accomplished putting all the clothes away in the closets, then your reward is that you get to go out and splurge for dinner, right? Everybody works good with a reward system. Work on executive dysfunction and decision-making skills. And that is something that, if you're working with a mental health provider, that they should be working on, because that is part of the base of why you're unable to get rid of items. And organization is key. And sometimes you have to get organized before you get rid of things. We understand that because you may have a couple, let's say, vases in front of you, but you know you have more in the house and you don't want to make a decision on which vases you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of until you get them all together. So organizing is a good first step to decluttering. Once you have everything in front of you, then it is easier to understand what has to go. Again, it's getting those like items together, getting them in designated areas. Should you be keeping your clothes in the living room? No. Should our clothes go in the dining room? No. Should all clothes go in the bedroom? By the closet? Yes. Should your mail be in the bedroom? If that's where your desk is. But should your mail then be in the living room or in the dining room? It should be all kept in one specific area. That is how you get organized. And creating rules to what you want to keep and for how long. You have to keep yourself on track. For me, it is going through my clothes, spring and fall. And I tell myself, if I have not worn this the year prior, it's got to go. I may love it. It's beautiful and useful, but it's not useful to me, and it could be useful to someone else. But you have to come up with your own rules because no one else is going to come up with them for you. And what's most important is not looking back, is going forward. Whatever has happened yesterday hopefully stays in the past. And if you are working towards a better, brighter future, we have to go forward. So easier said than done. I understand it. Some people are not ready for change. You may not be ready for change. So we have to decide if this is a situation where it's time to start cleaning up and getting a plan, or is it just a moment of harm reduction? That is the minimum, is harm reduction. And harm reduction comes up with some of the similarities as a cleanup, but it is focusing on maintaining safety at a minimum. It is not illegal to have a house that is cluttered. It's not illegal to have a house that is hoarded up. But when your safety and your neighbor's safety and your family's safety is at risk, that needs to be addressed at a minimum. So I tell people to focus on space. And what space stands for is the S is space, paths, access, clutter, and exits. Your entrance and exits need to be clear. There needs to be space in there for a gurney to get through, for if your refrigerator breaks down, they need to put a new refrigerator. There needs to be space for these things. A new heater. I end up having many clients that go without heat. They go without plumbing because there's simply not enough space just to move those things through to replace them. So either if it's yourself or you're helping someone and you recognize this in somebody, is it that you're moving forward or is it just a matter of harm reduction? Next. The integrated approach is something that we do here at Catholic Charities. We have our clients direct the services. We have a voluntary program that helps people. They decide if they want help. Then we work with a behavioral health professional, and then we assign a home coach. And that's somebody who works in the home hands-on with the individual and helps to make appropriate decisions, helps be an extra set of hands to move things around, but not to pressure, because it is ultimately up to the individual of what they want to keep and what they want to get rid of. But of course, we're going to encourage good decision making. But sometimes integrated approaches has an enforcer, and that enforcer many times will be a landlord, or it will be the health department, or it will be a family member. Those enforcers aren't there to be mean. They aren't there because they don't like you. They're enforcers to your safety and your well-being. So they are part of the team and are part of an integrated approach for best success. Next. So in review, and I know this was a lot of information, and probably a lot more that I could give you guys, but I do want to be able to have time for questions. But hopefully your takeaways is the indicators of hoarding disorder, and that there are risks, not just to yourself or to the individual that has the disorder, but to the community. Every year, at least twice a year, I get a phone call from a news station because someone has perished in a fire and their home was hoarded up and it prevented them from escaping that fire. At least twice a year. That's just here in Milwaukee area. So it is so extremely important to address this and to address this for falls, of course, number one, because that's what we're talking about today. But also how is to help someone establish a new positive coping mechanism and how that works. And how to make a simple plan and just get started. I know it's overwhelming, but things go out one item at a time, not 10 items at a time. And that there is success with people who have hoarding disorder. It is not something that an individual has to have their whole life, but if you work hard, you are able to have success and to recognize these behaviors before they get out of control. So next. On the slides, you're going to have a list of resources. I saw some of those questions coming up. Of course, Catholic Charities in our program, we serve Milwaukee and Waukesha County, but there is no other integrated program like ours around. You can find organizers or you can find a therapist, but if our program is not accessible, it is up to you to create your own team. And I believe one of the handouts that I've shared is about how to create your own team, because people cannot get out of this disorder on their own. You need support. You need mental health treatment. You need help with the finances. There's so many different moving parts. But what's most important is that you're safe in your home. So on the list of resources, there's some websites. There's a workbook that is really good for therapists to use. There's worksheets in there. But something that we do provide to the general public, even if you're not with our program, are support groups. Once a month, we have a support group for individuals who suffer from hoarding disorder, and that is held at our Milwaukee office. But anybody can come to those support groups. We're hoping in the next 2 months, we will have another support group for family and friends. So that would be something to watch out for if you're interested in. Next. There we go. So some of my favorite sayings that I tell my clients all the time is that humans have a natural need to bond with each other. But of course, if you can't because of trauma or isolation, you will bond with something else that will give you a sense of relief. Unfortunately, it will be the wrong things. So What we want to do is keep people bonding together and not bonding to their items. And you're never going to feel ready because ready is not a feeling, it is a decision. And when you decide that you want to get better and you want treatment, hopefully you can reach out and have our resources for proper treatment. And least last but not least is in order to change and grow, you have to become comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So I know I see questions popping up everywhere.
Thank you, Carla. That was
You are
great. We
welcome.
will go ahead and, yeah, let's open it up to some questions. Whoops, actually, yes, we'll open it up for some questions before we get to the rest of the presentation. So let's see here. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen and pull up the chat. All right, so the first question we have are, what are good ways to work on executive functioning?
I love that. And then we got an answer right after that.
Oh, look at that. Oh, yes. So Jennifer says, get ready, do, done with Sarah Ward for executive functioning visual that helps with planning and organizing. Anything else you want to add to that, Carla, or is that a good answer?
The only thing I would add is that this is exact reason why it's important to work with your therapist because they're going to be able to give you those skills and then you can take them home and practice them. Or take items with you if you're going to see a mental health provider. Take a box of items that's hard for you to decide on things and it's hard for you to get rid of. Take that stuff with you to your therapist. They will help you walk through the best approach for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you. And then we have, let's see, other suggestions. Timers, breaking tasks into smaller chunks, estimating the time of the task. All of those are executive functioning skills. And then Felicia asked to please go through the letters of the SPACE acronym again.
Sure. That is safety, paths, access, clutter, and exits. So safety is number one. Got to look at those paths, make sure they're wide enough for people to get through, and there's no falls or tripping items there. And access, those doors have to be able to come open all the way. Clutter, you have to make sure your clutter isn't over your waist, especially even if it's up to your shoulders. Um, it should be brought down to at least waist because if you do have a fall and you're falling and grabbing something, if your clutter is too high, it will fall on top of you. And then exits. So every home should have two exits. If you don't have a front and back door, is that a front door and windows? Or a porch? So you should have two exits, entrance and exit in your home.
Great, thank you. And a follow-up question to that is, what are indicators of pet hoarding?
Oh, the indicators is not following the rules set by the city that you live in. Right? If your city allows two cats or two pets or three pets in your home and you are over that amount, that is your first indicator. Second indicator is that those pets are now having a negative effect on your life. The pets is the same as an item. In fact, they're considered property. So whether it be that you have a house filled with books or a house filled with cats, it is the same. The items are now having a negative effect on your life. You're going to not be able to use rooms, what their intended purposes are. You're going to have all the same indicators as any other type of item. It's just that pets then come with other problems. You get biohazard issues, and then that affects your health. So,
Right. Thank you. That's helpful. Christy wonders, are you aware of resources available outside the Milwaukee area? She works with low income folks.
so again, I think it would be more recreating your own team. Um, and low income folks, hopefully, if they qualify for a social worker, could be the point person to organize this integrated team for you. You've got social worker or uh, some type of a building manager um, that would help. That's the best approach is just finding somebody else who can help lead the way because the individual themselves is going to be so overwhelmed by the calls that need to be made and the follow-ups and the resources. But I would look, of course, at your local ADRC and see what kind of resources they have for you.
Excellent. It sounds like those resources that you gave at the last slide too will be helpful for figuring out how to create that team. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep. Excellent.
And I
Okay.
see the next question is why aren't there more professionals to address this disorder? It is there's a couple reasons. Number one, like I mentioned, those with hoarding disorder end up having financial difficulties. So this is not a service that makes money. In fact, we have to have funding for a program like this. So, and when you're looking at funding sources, many times they're not looking at hoarding as important on their list, which it really should be because if you're addressing homelessness and falls and health, hoarding disorder encompasses all of those things.
Mhm.
But it's not just overwhelming to the person who has the disorder. It can be very overwhelming to professionals also. So you have to have the right people to do it and the right finances to be able to do this. But I train groups across this country all the time on how to recreate and create their own programs. I don't gatekeep any information that we have. So if there's anyone out there who is interested, I am very willing to share information.
Wonderful. We're grateful for you. All right. Barbara asked, can you recommend good resources for family members of people with hoarding disorder? I think there was maybe one for professionals on your list. Is there anyone specific for family members?
For resources for family members, I believe on that resource list there are some websites for families, but the best thing is to attend therapy yourself. There is just because it seems like your family member is the one that has the problems, you still have to process what's happening to them. So it's good to have your own support system because it is a coping mechanism. Truly, it is very similar to addictions, right? And family members play a different role when it comes to addictions. You have certain people who are enablers. You've got people who um, tend to disconnect from family members because of this. So it's important to realize your role in this, even though you may try to disconnect from your family member that has the disorder. Is that the best approach? So talking to a professional is very important. And again, there are some family stuff online, um, but support groups, hopefully we get our family and friends support group rolling again. And those things, the support groups are really a good resource.
Thank you so much. It's helpful. Okay. Do you have any sort of recommendation in regards to county and township ordinances that can be used or referenced to help address hazardous living situations where hoarding exists?
Um, it is, uh, we use our city inspectors. We work alongside of them, right? The thing is with a hoarding disorder, if you are given a general clean up all your stuff, the person shuts down. So we work along the side of ordinances and our inspectors to give us very specific things that need to be accomplished. And that helps our people to accomplish them. And but very specific, I do have a an inspection list that I can share where somebody who may not have issues right now with the city or your building can look through that list and make sure those things are taken care of. Because if you can access your windows, if you have enough space, then less likely you will have a problem, right? But sometimes you don't know that unless you know what the specific ordinances are of your building or of of your county, like how many pets you can have, how many vehicles you can have outside. Um, those will help direct you and guide you into the plan you need to accomplish.
Thank you. I'm just going to kind of, let's see, I think we've got time for a few more of these. So let's see, what is a good recommendation for assisting someone with this disorder that lives in a residential facility?
Number one, they still need to see a mental health provider. Two, all the staff needs training on the disorder. Because if you have a staff member in there who's like, just clean it up, I don't see why or if a staff member just goes and takes the stuff and throws it out themselves. So education is number one. Very important.
Education for the staff. Yep, and mental health counseling. That's great. Okay. Are there support groups or are your support groups, I'm guessing, available via Zoom or Teams or another format, or of any other support groups that you're aware of?
Unfortunately, ours are not. I do believe I have seen online. I don't know of them specifically, but I have seen some online that you may be able to connect with. Have to take some look at that. But it doesn't mean the support group has to be a hoarding support group, right? If you're grieving a loved one and that's contributing to the hoarding disorder, attend a grieving support group. There's so many different support groups that can still help.
It sounds like finding the root cause of what's going on with the hoarding and then finding a support group for that would also be
Yeah,
helpful. Okay,
yeah,
great. That's also very helpful. I think sometimes we have a tendency to group things into categories, right? And think just narrowly, but it sounds like it's a complex issue that you're wanting to make sure that
yeah.
you're
That's
addressing the root cause of it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's why at times people will tell me, well, my therapist says they don't specialize in hoarding. Well,
Mm-hmm.
all therapists have the ability to treat you because they have the tools. It's just that word hoarding, because the stigma of it, people do shut down, and that includes professionals. So still
Mm-hmm.
coming, having a discussion with somebody is very important.
Yeah, it sounds like it can be a coping mechanism. So finding out the root cause of the trauma and things like that. Great. Great. Okay. We have, yes, are the slides from this presentation available? Yes, they will be sent out to everyone in the next couple days. Anybody who registered for this webinar will get the slides. And they're also available on our website too. So yay, we just have a compliment for you, Carla. You're a phenomenal presenter,
Woo!
knowledgeable, experienced,
Thank you.
awesome. So
I'll
thank
pay
you
you
so
later.
much. Right. I'm just going to read through a couple more of these. We have a client who practices as a Jehovah's Witness and a hoarder. She will not go to counseling because of her religion. Do you have any recommendations to address this? She does want her house cleaned out, but won't do the therapy piece.
Then my suggestion is the person who is helping out um, is to help out while doing discussion because essentially it's the same thing as if you're going into an office to meet with a therapist, or if you have somebody who's knowledgeable about emotions and processing to help you through. Um, my suggestion would be that person who's doing the hands-on work to be doing discussion because you will come across items that need to be discussed at that time. So um, that is
Excellent.
important. But If somebody
Trusting
does not
emotion.
want help, you can't help them.
Right.
That is denial.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so Brandy says you mentioned one of the interventions is working with someone to help them identify what is useful to keeping versus not useful to keeping. When, let's see, when the hoarding is garbage, how do you help someone recognize nothing is needed? I have several in this category.
Okay. So when the hoard is garbage, it's usually one of two things. Usually garbage is more significant with people who are suffering from depression. Number one. Number two, if there is a lot of garbage, it may mean that that person does not have hoarding disorder. There is a diagnosis called Diogenes syndrome, and that is when there is a disconnect between healthy and unhealthy living habits. And those who have Diogenes syndrome, it is more of, I would say, like a dementia. There's the hoarding isn't caused due to trauma or to being on the spectrum. It is more of a dementia, which makes it there's a disconnect and they will are not able to understand or learn healthy living habits. So usually if I go to a client's house, I pick up a piece of garbage and I say, is it okay? I say it's a wrapper. Is it okay if I throw this wrapper away? If somebody is like, of course, it's garbage, you can throw that away. I just, I'm just haven't gotten to it. That shows me that they usually are suffering from more depression. But if somebody says, well, I want to keep that wrapper because it reminds me of that food that I ate and I don't know what store I got it at. And then that wrapper is foil, so I could use that on my TV antenna. Um, then that shows me there's more maybe OCD going on. But if somebody says, well, I don't want to get rid of that wrapper because I don't see the sense in it. There's that then and the discussion doesn't make sense of why. Even if you have some OCD behaviors, there's a reason behind holding on to that wrapper. But if there's no reason to be holding on to it, but you still are holding on to it, then that shows me maybe there's more Diogenes syndrome going on.
There's lots of different layers of the
Yeah,
reasons and it's very individual.
very individual. It's
So I
hard
think
for me
that's
to
where you're
do
seeing.
trainings on training people to help others because every individual is different. The mix up of
Mhm.
things that have happened to it. The house is different, family support systems are different. Very has to be very individualized.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's helpful. There's a lot of really great comments in here too. Some stories. Candace has a story. And Patricia asking about is the stigma of hoarding, is there better words and terms to use instead? I don't know if there's another term that you've
Nope, no,
experienced. Not really.
no, because when you truly explain what the disorder is, it gets rid of the stigma. But again, if you think of hoarding disorder as like an addiction, do we shy away from addictions or addiction discussion? No, it has to be talked about. Um, of course, I know because of the show, the TV show, it had brought more stigma of garbage and like extreme amounts, but we're bringing it back in to the original discussion of hoarding disorder, and it is just a negative coping mechanism.
Okay. We're running short on time. I want to leave 5 minutes for some other closing comments too. So I am just going to go read through these a little bit. And it looks like Brandy, you have your hand up, so I'll get to you also next. But it looks like is hoarding disorder OCD? It sounds no. The answer was no, and thank you, Barb, for answering that. And Carla just reinforced that as well. Looks
Yeah,
like there's
it's
some
just that it's in the
resources.
DSM. In the DSM, you will find it under OCD, but hoarding disorder, you come across everyone else's disorders.
Sounds good. Okay. So great explanation. Nina has a story in here, so thank you for sharing that. And then Brandy, I want to get to you. It looks like you have your hand up for our last question.
Thank you. Also, that was an amazing explanation on that. Thank you so much. I was one that asked about the garbage. So real quick, you mentioned it was called Diogenes syndrome. Did I
Yes.
say that correctly? Okay. Because I have a lot in my community that fall into this category. So you opened up my eyes quite a bit to some other things. What would be the best treatment approach that someone normally goes through for Diogenes syndrome? Is it just to address the potential dementia and get that assessed and treated
That would
appropriately?
that would be it.
Okay.
I'm working more with community leaders on understanding this, and having discussions with local Department on Agings
Mm-hmm.
because many times those are the individuals that end up having to become chaptered. But they're
Yeah.
aware of who they are, the date, and everything else. They just cannot make appropriate safety decisions for themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to bring it out more in the community and discussion on Diogenes.
Hmm. Interesting. Do you have any recommended resources on that
No,
that I
I
could
don't.
look into further? Okay. I will
Sorry.
do my own research. Thank you.
I think Carla, you're have a lot of contacts after this, which is wonderful. So as I go through the closing comments, I'm wondering, Carla, if you can put your email or contact information in the chat,
Oh,
so people
absolutely.
have that. That would be wonderful. So thank you. Thank you everyone for such great questions. Sorry we didn't have time for all of them, but I think we got through most of them. I'm just going to go ahead and share some other resources and information here as to close us out. So again, here is Carla's slide. So again, you're all going to have access to this slide after the presentation. So go ahead and take a picture of it, or you'll be able to see it later, but there's a lot of good resources. And then I want to just provide an opportunity for you all. We really like to hear your feedback on this presentation. So as soon as you exit out of Zoom, there'll automatically be a survey that's going to come up. And if you just want to let us know how this presentation and session did for helping you and giving you more information. And then you will be entered in for a drawing for a free Age Well t-shirt. And the winner is going to be chosen by the end of this week. So we will let you know if you're the winner and we will send you that in the mail. So there's that real quick. And then I also wanted to bring up our next Age Well series. We usually plan these a couple months in advance. We usually have at least one every single month. So stay tuned for the rest of the year. But for sure, we know March 10th, there'll be one on 5Ms, which is the mind, mobility, medication, multi-component, and matters when it comes to treatment and care for us as we age. And then we'll have one on April 16th at 11 a.m. and one on May 19th at 1 p.m. So the April one will be how social media shapes what we think and what we believe. It's going to kind of give us some information on algorithms and how that impacts how we think about our health. And then we will be looking at loneliness and social isolation, increasing our risk of dementia in May. So stay tuned for those. Then I also want to just remind everyone, if you haven't already, we have a specific fall prevention resource here in Wisconsin called fallsfreewi.org. And you can see the link is at the bottom of the screen. And we encourage you to do our home safety challenge. So this is an interactive home safety challenge where when you click on this link, it's going to take you, this is a real Wisconsin home that we walked through. And when you hover over the screen, it's almost like a little mini video game where you're going to hover over the screen with your mouse and it will tell you areas that are not safe, things that you can adjust, whether it's you're missing some lighting in a certain area, or there's clutter here, or there's clutter there, or this needs a handrail, or things like that. There's many, many different home hazards that you'll be able to view as you walk through the home, and you can click through each of the doors that goes through each of the rooms in the house. So it's very educational. We encourage you to take a look at that if you haven't already, especially when we're talking about clutter. There's definitely more to it than just clutter, but it does provide some great recommendations. When you click on each of those items, it'll tell you this is how you can remedy this situation. So we encourage you to take a look at that for fall prevention and safety. And I also wanted to just do a reminder for those of you who may not be aware, we also have the program called Stepping On, and then the Spanish language and cultural adaptation of that program called Pasando Fuerte. We have that available here in Wisconsin and also nationwide. And this is a multifactorial falls prevention program. So we know that this program reduces falls by 31% or more, depending on which study that you're looking at. So it's a very comprehensive program. So we encourage you to check out our website at wihealthyaging.org, and you can see where a Stepping On and or Pasando Fuerte program are available in your community. If you don't see any available in your community, you can go ahead and contact us, and we can put you in contact where the nearest Stepping On program is in your area. But it's a 7 to 8 week different community workshop, and it addresses all the different components of fall prevention. So we encourage you to take a look at that program as well. So we answered all of our questions, and we're at the end of our time. I just want to say thank you to our sponsors for Falls Free Wisconsin, UW Health, and encourage you again to look at fallsfreewi.org and Carla's information in the chat, emailing her for any additional questions and follow-up. And we just wish you all a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much. And thanks, Carla.
Thank you.